All right. Kan jeg få lyd? Welcome, everyone. Democracy is under global pressure. Freedom of expression is being restricted. Political opponents are silenced. Authoritarian regimes are tightening their grip, while democratic institutions are being weakened. In many countries, the space for participation, dialogue, and political organization is shrinking. How can we support pro-democracy movements and protect fundamental rights in societies where freedom is under attack? Norec invites you to an important conversation about democracy promotion in a global context marked by increasing authoritarian control. We will ask, oh, sorry. Hello. It's stretching a bit here, so I don't know. Okay. Skal jeg prøve den her da? In 2024, Norec took over. Do you have me?
Okay.
In just a second. Hello, hello. Okay. It's the beginning of Arnold Suka, so we are the guinea pigs. Yeah. Hello, hello. Any life? The button? Hello. Okay. I feel like I'm in my old job. Well, in this discussion, we will zoom in on two particular regions. First, democracy in the context of Israel and Palestine. Secondly, democracy in the context of the European neighborhood, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and so on. And thirdly, how does developments in the sphere of big politics, for example, developments in the United States, affect the development of democracy in the context of Middle East and Eastern Europe and Eastern neighborhood? And finally, we will discuss if there is a cure. Is there a cure against growing dominance of power politics and authoritarian politicians? Welcome to an open and honest conversation about the future of democracy. My name is Roger Severin Bruland. I'm head of communications for Norec. I have a great panel today. I have Indre Bulavaite Andrejeva from the Swedish International Liberal Center, Tetena Volde Mariam, who is a program director of Norec, have Jon Peder Egenes, Secretary General of Amnesty International Norway, and Sissel Wold, that is a long-time Middle East expert and journalist for NRK. And finally, Halvor Endrerud, the Secretary General of AUF. But first, we will have some opening remarks from Tetena about why are Norec working with this topic.
Thank you, Roger. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. Just to go to some facts. If you've seen the Freedom House report for 2024, it marked the 19th consecutive year of global democratic decline. Civil liberties are being deteriorated in 60 countries just last year. This is the reason that we are gathered here today to have this important conversation. How do we support pro-democratic movements in a space where freedom is literally under siege? How do we protect the civil rights for just an open space? The truth is that democracy does not protect itself. People protect democracy. Movements protect democracy. And partnerships protect democracy. And I'm so happy that we will hear from the people who are fighting for democracy on the front lines, who are pushing back, who are building coalitions, and who are finding creative ways to build partnerships that protect the rights and the values that we all hold so high. And we ask, why Norec? And this is a picture here that demonstrates why we are doing this. Norwegian development policy is rooted in human rights, good governance, and inclusive dialogue. And Norec's role is to make that policy tangible by supporting the people who are fighting for democracy, by ensuring that they have the right skills, the right networks, and the perspectives to work on these issues. And in 2024, we launched the Democracy Through Partnerships program, where Norwegian political parties and their youth wings work with their global partners to strengthen democratic institutions all over the world, from Belarus to Palestine, from Lebanon to Argentina. These projects are having visible effects. We see that young people and women have increased representation in political systems. We see that young activists are being trained and are learning new ways to build coalitions and partnerships with other parties. And the budgets might be modest for this program, but the impact is designed to have a transformative effect. Because true to Norec's value, these projects are co-created, they are co-led and co-owned. So this is why we have gathered here for the conversation today. So I'm very happy to hear from the people on the front lines who are working in the context and the conditions that these projects are operating in. So welcome to this conversation.
Vær så god. Sissel og Halvor. So here we have Sissel and Halvor Endrerud, and I will start with you, Sissel. You're actually writing a book now about the latest developments between Israel and the Palestinians and this horrible situation in Gaza. And we talked earlier today about a very powerful politician in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And could you just explain a little bit what kind of character is he? And is he part of a larger global trend of these strongmen that are dominating many places in the world now?
Yeah, first of all, Benjamin Netanyahu is a very smart, intelligent politician. He's an amazing speaker, but he has no empathy and he's very cynical. And I think a lot of people in Israel will say that he's also very evil, doesn't care about his own people. But Netanyahu has always had a mantra for his political life. It's been keep the Palestinians divided, so there will never be a unity there that he has to negotiate with, because he's not interested in a solution. I mean, he has never been. And keep the left side down, the elites down, and keep myself in power for whatever it costs. And this is what he's doing now, because he risks 13 years in prison for corruption. And one very well-known political analyst said that what is driving Netanyahu, what has been driving him for 6 years now, is the fear of the sound of the gates of the prison slamming behind him. I mean, he's dead scared to come into prison, because they have the Masyahu prison with the VIP cell, which has also been the home cell of former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and President Katza. So the Israelis are putting their politicians in prison. But now, the last year, since the winter of 2003, he has formed a coalition with the most extreme parties, because they were the only ones who were willing to be in a government with Netanyahu, who is in this trial. So he has to do what they want. They are very religious. They want a big biblical Israel. They get whatever they want now. They want a huge war. So in the end, the Messiah will come. I mean, the Jewish Messiah. This is a religious war, as I see it, a religious war in Gaza, in the West Bank. And Netanyahu goes along with that. And just my last point, he wants to dismantle the Supreme Court. And if he dismantles the Supreme Court, he will talk them into not, dropping the trial against him, that he will not have to fear going into prison. But it will also make it easier for him to annex both Gaza and the West Bank, which is doing anyway.
But with that, they studied the Middle East 30 years ago. The mantra was that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and they are the beacon of hope for democracy. And what went wrong?
Many things, but I think because Israel is a country on speed, the news cycle is crazy. And what went wrong with the democracy now is that Netanyahu has maneuvered out all his opponents. He's been treating them very bad. Nobody wants to cooperate with him except these crazy people, Ben Gvir and Smotrich. And he is trying to dismantle also the army. He is firing the heads of the army, the heads of the intelligence services, and replacing it with loyalists. So it's not very different from what we see Donald Trump is doing. Netanyahu is ruling with loyalists, so the democracy is disappearing more and more, and is also after the press, like Donald Trump is after the press.
It may be a difficult question, but you have the MAGA, Make America Great Again, group that is dominating American politics. How does that feed into the Netanyahu politics or any other strongman politics?
His government also wants to make Israel great again. The biblical Israel, which goes from Euphrates River to the Nile. Yeah. And this sounds crazy because we live in a very secular country. But in Israel, these religious messianic groups who are waiting for the Jewish Messiah, they are very strong now. And we don't use enough time, I think, talking about that. But they are really, really strong now. So Israel is on the way where also a lot of liberal Israelis are leaving Israel now, that see no future there. And my book is about where is Israel on its way. And that's a very dark place.
Can you explain what when you say dark place?
One of the people I interview, a very famous professor of political science, he says that in 15, 20 years, Israel will be no more as we know it. It will be a failed state with a big militia, Ben Gvir's militia. They are arming the settlers now. And it will be like a dismantled country, like Lebanon, where they have a group of secular people, they have these religious crazies, and they have the ultra-Orthodox people who are a very big part of Israel. They're growing. They have 10 children each family, and they are so a big part of the society now, and they just sit and pray. They don't work very much. They don't join the army. So they will destroy the economy of Israel from the inside because it's such a big burden to carry for the rest of the taxpayers there.
And in this environment, with the tragic situation in Gaza, all the peace process are dead. How can we work with democracy on the Palestinian side? Is there any room for democracy on that side now?
This is very difficult because the Palestinians are under occupation and now ethnic cleansing. They are not wanted there. And just to remind everybody here, the last election was in 2006. So the politicians that the Norwegian government and others are working with, they are, they have not been elected for a very long time. The other thing is that the election in 2006 was a very important election for the Palestinians. And the rest of the world encouraged the Palestinians. They said, you need to elect your leaders if you want to have, economic support from us and political. But then the Palestinians voted in Hamas. And for the outside world, this was the wrong winners. So, they were not... it
was not the right democracy.
There was not the right democracy. They chose the wrong people. But they chose Hamas because Fatah was very unpopular because they were corrupt. So also Hamas were very surprised and shocked about that victory. But Norway was the only country that acknowledged a mixed government with Fatah and Hamas. Raymond Johansen went there to talk with them, and they thought, okay, we talk to them, and the rest of the world will follow. Guess what? Nobody followed. So it's also you cannot deal with this conflict alone if you're a small country.
But earlier we spoke a bit about this youth revolution, youth politician revolution in is it Fatah Youth you referred to, or the youth parties in the Palestinian and in the West Bank? Will there come a new generation of politicians?
The thing is that the Palestinians have never had more support in the world than now. Never, because there is a new generation waking up, seeing what's going on in the Middle East. The Palestinians have never had more political support and empathy. At the same time, the Palestinians on the ground have never had a worse situation. So, I mean, you need to, for the Palestinians, need to, get this support outside materialized. And you see there is a big shift now, because more and more countries have recognized the state of Palestine, even if it doesn't exist. And there will now be 151 countries of the 193 countries in the United Nations. So there is a big shift. It's like the Me Too, it's like the Black Lives Matter. Something big is happening, but where will it end? And there is a lot of very, very well-educated, smart Palestinians, but they need to get to important positions, and they need to be able to work. I mean, under the Israeli occupation, how are you going to work?
And that is a very good pass to you, Halvor, that is working with the Palestinians and youth politicians. Do you see a new generation coming now that can change things?
Let me just start by saying that our project with our partners, Fatah Youth, isn't a new one. It's been going on for many years. And what we do is have a academy with Fatah Youth, where we take 25 young people into a training for trainings version of building. And the goal is that those are going to be local leaders that needs to organize activities in their villages. And on the way down here, I called one of AUF's best friends in Palestine, Saif, who has been a youth leader in Fatah Youth for many years, and asked, do you see any hope? Do you see any change? And he said that it's double-edged. Yes, it's even more young people engaging in Fatah and coming through, but they also say that the Israeli government are putting in a lot of measures to not make that activity possible. So one of the things I think is the saddest about the situation is both that the conflict is brutal and evil, but also the democratic institutions you need for a lasting peace are getting attacked by the Israeli government. So that makes the way of building a stable, democratic, anti-violent government in Palestine even harder. But our partners are some of the most brave people I know, that even when the bombs are falling and the attacks are happening, they still organize, they still expand the activities. And right now, many of the young people that we have had in our academies are now taking leadership locally. And I would say that yes, it hasn't been any elections since 2006, but one of the most inspiring things is also what's happening on the campuses, on the student side, where many of Fatah's youth representatives now gets elected, gets in positions, and are able to build for the future.
I can divulge that we tried to get one of your partners here to be a participant on a panel, but apparently it's impossible.
Yes.
Is that a way of limiting that they cannot come to Norway and talk about their work, their situation?
I think it's one of the ways that's brutal about both the occupation and the war. We had 4 members of Fatah Youth. Cecil met some of them on our summer camp. But one of the main issues is getting to go outside, speak about the situation. One example, we had 4 members coming here, and the checkpoints have now gotten so hard that when they went back from Amman and went into the West Bank, they had to stay 4 days before even being allowed to travel in. So I see that it's a shift in the Israeli checkpoint systems, where it's even harder to travel and even harder to participate in debate.
And Sissel, when you hear these stories, what do you personally think about? I'm putting you on the spot here. What do you personally think when you hear about this harassment and the difficulties that there is absolutely no, it's everything they're against each other, no cooperation at all?
I've seen the harassments for many, many years, and I think that it's very clear now that the Israeli government wants to make life for Palestinians as shitty and impossible as possible, to make them think that they need to leave, because this is what they really want, to make the Palestinians leave. And many people that I know, for example, I have a friend in Bethlehem, is from a very famous Christian family, and their life is more and more impossible for them, because they cannot travel to their lands. Their lands is outside the big wall that the Israelis built 20 years ago, and they are thinking about leaving, but to Latin America. But they have been in Bethlehem for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years they have been there. And it's very painful for them to think of leaving, because then they will do what the Israelis want. And, the Israelis are taking their lands anyway. But on the other hand, they are also thinking about their children. Is this miserable life without a future? And this is Bethlehem. This is not even Gaza. And in Gaza, the word future has not been used very much by people I talk with, with kids. Even 15 years ago, they said that we avoid the word future because we feel there is no way out. And it's a big drama. It's almost like something from the Bible. It's a huge, huge drama. And of course, all our leaders are sitting here and watching this. And I think that a lot of you here are just as upset and hurt. And, I feel that my heart is bleeding every day because of this. And what to do? We're going to discuss this.
Yes, we're going to discuss it later. Thank you, Sissel and Halvor. Now we'll ask Jon and Indre. Yeah. And now we're coming to the... do you have the sound?
Yeah.
Good. To the European neighborhood, much closer to home. It always puzzles me that we are talking more about the Middle East than actually our own neighborhood, because I've been working in Berlin and I know how small Europe is. It's very close to us. And Jon, was it last year I talked to Tikhanovskaya, that is the big oppositional politician in Belarus, and can you just tell me a little bit how is it to be, for example, Belarusian oppositional today and working in Belarus? It sounds so hard.
Yeah, I think there is, it's not by chance that Tikhanovskaya does not live in Belarus, because if you are an active oppositional politician, you are most probably in prison. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, many of them not well-known or top politicians, but people with oppositional political views who are political prisoners, or as we say, prisoners of conscience. So Belarus is basically, and has almost been since the end of the Soviet Union, what most people would call a classical dictatorship. It's closed, everything is controlled. The limits for what you can do and can't do are very narrow. No freedom of expression, no freedom of organization. And as I said, many politicians, human rights activists, young people who have taken to the streets find themselves in prison. As you might remember, when there was this last election and Tikhanovskaya was the candidate, there were also two other women, Tikhanovskaya and the second one I can't remember, but Maria Kaleshnikova, who was one of the three, decided not to leave. She was actually kidnapped, driven to the border of Ukraine, and they wanted just to throw her out into Ukraine. She took her passport, tore it apart, and threw it so the Ukrainians wouldn't let her in. And she ended up with being sentenced to 11 years in prison. And she's now in prison. She has been isolated for a long part of that prison sentence. She has been ill, but she is still strong. We have quite close contact with her sister who can communicate with her after she came out of isolation. So we know that she is, at least alive and out of isolation. She has met her father physically once. So this is the reality of Belarus. But the area, or let's just say Europe, is many countries are at different stages of going in this direction. So I saw in our papers, or I think in your introduction you said Belarus, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. And we can't lump them together. So if I kind of set up a line between Belarus as almost an old-fashioned dictatorship, amongst those three, I would have Georgia in the other end and Azerbaijan in the middle. So Azerbaijan, very authoritarian, but still maybe not as bad as Belarus. Georgia is an interesting case because I think there's still a battle. The government wants to take Georgia in the direction of Russia or the more authoritarian direction, but people, particularly young people, are on the street every day and protesting. And what we hear from our friends and colleagues in Georgia is you must not, everybody's looking at, of course, Palestine. Everybody's looking at the US. Everybody's looking at Ukraine. They say, so do not forget us, because if not, you will probably have another country going in the same direction, but we can still stop this. So that's sort of coming back to what can we do. That is something that we must be aware of. But I would also like to just put on the table that I think on Saturday, 336 was the last number I saw. Palestine demonstrators were arrested in London during a peaceful demonstration. It is true that they were arrested and sort of supporting an organization where some members had broken into a military base and sabotaged some airplanes, but not all those people. And the demonstration itself was peaceful. They weren't fighting the police.
Do you see a global
We must
trend?
be very, very careful.
Is there something going on?
We must be very, very careful. Because we talk about sort of the established democracies and we think about the UK and France and Germany, etc., and of course ourselves. But there are things happening everywhere. And we don't even need to mention the US, of course. Everybody knows what's going on there. But I just, we have to fight back all over the place. We just can't just look at, the crazy guys who used to be Soviets and say, we have to save them. We are in the midst of it.
And Indra, you are working from Lithuania, so you are very close to all these conflicts. How does it feel? Does it make you paranoid to work for democracy and freedom in today's Lithuania, just because you're so close to Belarus and Russia and all the madness that's going on?
Thank you, Ragnar. Yes, I mean, when you start thinking about personal stand, how does it feel to be as a citizen or working with the Scandinavian partners and etc.? I mean, you understand that it is the neighborhood, and you don't choose the neighbors. And then it's all about the people. And one thing is that you can just take it for granted when you can travel, there is no borders, you can come, meet the relatives or buy for shopping or something. And then when suddenly it's all closed in the sense that you don't know what questions are posed for you on the border. You don't know if you will spend 10 minutes or maybe 5 hours. You don't know nothing. And at the same time, those risks, when we here on the safe side, let's say, we think that it's a risk to go through the border because, you were here in the West and then you come back home and then maybe are questioned. While the local people would say that, we are living this risk every day. It's open air prison. You never know when does it come. Maybe because of 2 years back when I was in a shopping mall or I met someone, now the KGB has something to ask. So it's a constant risk, and that's also the crazy thing, creativity that comes with the local people, with the activists, with with how you actually go around the things, how you find your way to navigate. That just becomes a default.
Tikhanovskaya told me that the activists in Belarus, they walk around with a toothbrush in the purse because they never know when they're going to the jail.
Yeah. How crazy that can be, right?
Is this a way of messing with people's head? Do you go to jail, you don't know for how long, then they let you out again, then you go back. Well, what is the process here of repression?
You kind of normalize what can happen, and it doesn't become so scary in a way. But when you sit back and you put some empathy, understanding what are the humans around about, I mean, that's when you start understanding that this is not normal, right? I mean, walking the dog in a park, it's politics, because maybe you discuss some things, or maybe you are with someone who just thinks differently. Being at school and then thinking how you can school your kids back at home, because school actually reinvented the books telling the Soviet stories back again, brainwashing. So it's a constant resilience, constant fight, constant thinking what actually you have to do to be more critical, and actually how you as a person, as an activist, as a citizen in an oppressed society need to stay democratic yourself, because you cannot do the democracy without democratic means. So that requires additional strength as well, because it takes longer.
Sissel mentioned that in Gaza they don't like to talk about future because it's too painful. Do you sense a little bit the same with your partners? Is it hard to talk about the future?
No, I would not sense that. I think maybe that's also the proximity to Europe, and people feel part of Europe. Yes, maybe sometimes, in my personal experience, they would kind of plead to confirm, do you confirm that we are Europeans? But at the same time, there is another part of the people that come and say, I mean, we are Europeans, this is Europe. And then I would also say that it's also our responsibility as international community, the organizations, the countries, to also think just a bit, how can we challenge ourselves? I mean, me, myself being Lithuanian, I think Lithuania itself does not imagine what would it be to live nearby democratic Belarus. We never asked that question. And that is a big thing to us, because it's about cultural exchange, trade, education, about so many things. Yeah. So, like forward thinking. So I think even Palestinians, when they don't think about the future, I mean, you still have it in the heart. And that is about how can we move then? What can we do? And in totally different ways that we did 30 years ago. I mean,
after the Cold War, everybody believed, I think, that these countries would just grow into the democratic paradise with no trouble. And then we see trouble many places, Romania, Hungary, Poland. There is backlash to democracy. Belarus, Ukraine, the Caucasus. You are yourself from Lithuania. Do you think democracy in the Baltic countries came automatically, or has it been a tough job?
We are still working on it. Yes, we are a democracy, but the society also, we need to learn how to reflect, to also not take things for granted, but at the same time to understand how far we went, to appreciate it, but also to self-esteem ourselves and to know that we now can help the others. I mean, it's not a default. We have a fight today as well, because there are generations that remember the young days from the Soviet Union. And when you say that, you know, I am the Soviet kid, it's like, yes, but then it was occupation. So we need a debate, an open debate that is still uncomfortable. But at the same time, seeing what's happening in Ukraine, I mean, you totally feel with your heart, and you know that there is no way back. It's only about the society that can, community that can trust and help each other, because that's the way forward with humanity. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But it's constant work. It's a constant work, because you see groups being infiltrated, supported by the Kremlin agendas that always have something else to say, and it's easy for them because they don't need to commit to anything. Whatever message works.
Thank you, Indre. I will call Sissel and Halvor back to the podium, because now we want to end a bit this discussion on the future, because we want to see if there is any hope. We in Norec, we think our small contribution is a part of the solution, but Let's start with you, Jon. You're working with Amnesty International. What is your cure to cure this kind of disease that is spreading now in the world against democracy?
It sounds maybe stupid, but I think democracy is the only cure for this discussion. And I just, when you were talking, I just remember I recently met some Amnesty colleagues from the Czech Republic. And we were talking about the political situation there, and that's also, they're electing some not so good people, etc. But they were very clear, but this is democracy. The majority of the people have elected these people. We who are against them must just work on and mobilize so that the majority of the people then throw them out again at the next election. And I guess to some extent that is the only way we can go. And then outside of my Amnesty role, because this is not an Amnesty point of view, but looking at the US, and I actually asked this question in Pakistan in 2003 when the quite sort of extreme Islamist parties were growing. They never got to more than around 10%, but they were growing. And I asked people, why on earth would people vote for these, knowing what they're from? And they basically said, democracy hasn't delivered. They are as poor, their life is as miserable as it had ever been. So democracy also, and I think this is something we learned from the US, is that we need to think how democracy delivers for everybody. It's not, it can't just be, elites like us. Everybody has to feel that this delivers for me. And I think that is a question that Jonas Gahr Støre and others also have to start thinking about. How can we make sure that democracy delivers? And that is where we need to fight. What we I'll end very shortly. What we of course do is to document and publish and engage with people in countries and literally show how human rights are being violated. That has been easier in times when everybody were agreed, at least publicly, that human rights were good. Now we see loads of leaders saying human rights is just, what's that? Why should somebody in New York tell me what to do? So it's even harder.
But you think that as long as people are well off, they don't need to be free? They can then be unfree? Like in China?
What? I'll quote Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen said, "Democracy sounds like a good idea. Somebody should try it."
Yeah.
No, but of course, I mean, for me, it's the opposite. If democracy doesn't deliver for those at the bottom of society, they will probably. What we're seeing now is that they, to a large extent, turn to the strong man because the strong man always talks to them. And never delivers, but always talks to them.
And Sissel, in the Middle East, 30 years ago, they were talking about, is democracy really something that people want? Or is it something that we in the West, we want them to have it, but they haven't really thought about it? Is that also a part of the equation? You
see, in states like Qatar and the Emirates, they are living good lives. I mean, the people who live good lives there, not all the workers maybe from Bangladesh and Nepal, but they don't have democracy and they are happy with it. I mean, it's easy for them. But I mean, for the rest of us, I think democracy is something that we strive after. If you ask me about hope, I think we must look to the States again. I mean, maybe forward 3.5 years when Donald Trump is out of office, because there is a lot of things happening there. And what I really feel is very hopeful is the new Democratic candidate for the mayor in New York. His name is Zoran Mamdani. And he is suddenly like a new Obama, and he has a very strong firm when it comes to what's going on in Israel. He says that if Netanyahu comes to New York and he is a mayor, he will arrest Netanyahu. Because today all our institutions right to do whatever they decide. And Donald the leader of the jungle. He says, okay, you know, Netanyahu, the Israelis can do whatever they want. I don't care. But he gives Netanyahu and other people just a free pass.
Yeah.
And Trump is with the winner. So, you know, if somebody like Netanyahu is bombing Iran and he sees that Netanyahu is winning, he says, okay, you know, the Israelis are doing quite good. I'm on their side. So this is very dangerous. We are in the jungle, and I hope that in 3.5 years we will be out of it. But I am hopeful for the Democratic Party in the US. They have to get their act together. They have to, with Mamdani also, the hope with Mamdani is that he won in New York, which is the second largest Jewish city in the world after Tel Aviv. A lot of young Jews are really revolted by what is going on in Israel, and also many moderate Jews in the States. So the shift must come from there, both amongst progressive liberal Jews, the people who donate money to Israel, but also, I mean, from the leadership. There has to be a change, and they must see that democracy and human rights are something to be valued.
And again, this is a pass to you, Halvor. You're working with the young politicians now in the West Bank. Do you see hope in these guys? Can they become actors, agents of change to change something?
Yes, I would say so. And if we start losing hope, I don't know what to say to them, because they are standing up each and every day. On the last 2 weeks, 5 of our members in Gaza has been killed, 3 from bombs raining into innocent homes, 2 of them being killed by a sniper while they were waiting in queue to get aid and food. But I have one perspective that I think is important, because right now in Palestine, politics is the war. The war is the politics. And I think that one of the good things about the project with Norec and for AF's part is that we have to have 2 different thoughts in our heads. We have to have a goal about the short-time crisis, which is the war. It has to stop. The killing has to stop. The blockade has to stop. The wall has to be torn down. But Palestinian politicians also have to have a goal for society, because my worst fear is that the international coalition gets strong enough. Israel has to give up their war, but there are no democratic institutions ready to fill the void. And that is one of our main points. We have to talk about how do we want to build the school system, how can we have good elections that's not rigged, how can we have a healthcare system that's sustainable for the future. And one of the most inspiring things that I've seen throughout the project is that when many of the new members into our academy comes in, their worldview is the war. How do we get the international coalition? And in the end of their time in academy, they're also speaking about what kind of Palestine do we envision. I feel like it's some of the parallels from the Second World War, where social democrats and socialists were in concentration camps and sitting together and writing what are the things that we are going to build when Norway is free. I think the same procedures has to be done in Palestine. And my biggest fear is that now a lot of the projects are being torn down by other governments. One of them is in Sweden, where our sister party SSU, are fearing for their finances for international projects. And if the democratic beacon could live for years to come, the democratic states can't give up on the places that looks the darkest. Rather, the opposite. We need to strengthen the democratic projects in different countries. Gaza and Palestine is one, but it's a lot of different parts of the world right now where the West is leaving, that Norway and other countries have to fill the void.
Jon?
Yes, I just want to. We're not coming towards the end as much as I thought, but I just think we should also remember that this isn't the first time. There are many people here who are old like me, and we grew up in a world that was divided. You know, the whole of the Soviet bloc were dictatorships. There were military dictatorships in Latin America. There were dictatorships in a lot of countries in Africa. We had apartheid in South Africa, etc. And that changed. And as you said, I started professionally with human rights in 1990, and I thought I was going to be a superstar, just sort of cool. Everybody's going to love Amnesty, and it's going to be fantastic, and etc., etc. And that ended in 2001, more or less, with 9/11. But so we've done this before, and when I say we, I mean the international society, people who are of democratic minds, and that is why it's so important to have all these international connections, support, whether it has to be with a diaspora living outside of a country because they are the only ones who can actually try to do something. We just have to keep, but we also need to reinvent how we do it because they have learned from what, Bakkevig went to South Africa with a suitcase full of money and gave to the ANC. I don't think you'll get away with that, but we have crypto, so. Yeah. Be calm. We've got crypto, but we just need to think again how we do it, and we also have to, as you say, the change won't come from the outside. Amnesty won't create democracy or Norec or anybody. It has to come from the people within. But we have a role to play in supporting and in to some extent be an example to show that democracy actually works when it works well.
Indre, I will give you the final word because it's not easy to build a society in a prison cell. How can people or civil society support people that are in isolation in a big prison, guarded 24 hours? Is there anything we can do for them? And is it important for them to know that we are supporting them?
It indeed is. And I think that also answers what was said. It's about long term. Because you will never know when that 0.1% of people power will come, when the governments collapse, when the dictator steps down, or the sun comes different in the morning and people suddenly are in the streets. I really believe in this. Otherwise, I would not be in this field. And I know that there are many other people in these oppressed societies. They also believe that. Maybe they do the philosophy in the kitchen, but then the other day they are in the street. So it takes time, and that's also for the national community, for the Scandinavian countries also because there is this, it's different approach. It's about the trust building, the ownership support, and then staying long term. And that also takes, and you don't know when the people are let out from the prison, but every day counts, and this matters.
Thank you. So I guess the conclusion is that the change has to come from the inside, and we from the outside have to hold the torch high and support what we can. So thank you very much for this good discussion, and thank you for coming. Da må ikke du springe før vi har tatt bilde. Jan Olav, hopp inn vinduet, vi har bilde. Men hvor... Vil du ha det her inne, eller skal vi gå?